ethics cannot be only an afterthought or a silo. It has to be a part of the product lifecycle. But you want to say, oh, we have a chatbot, oh, we have AI in HR or whatever, just to say we are an innovative company because we use AI. No, you're not. It's more about making the intentions, the limitations, and the impacts clear to a wide range of people.
Hello everyone, I am Sergio Maldonado and this is Masters of Privacy, a set of interviews covering the intersection of marketing, data, privacy and technology with a clear goal in mind, which is redefining the relationship between people, brands and media around transparency and control. Which is to say, we're aiming for real customer centricity, or if you will, human centricity. We regularly talk to DPOs, CMOs, CDOs, and whoever else we find interesting and able to share valuable insights. So we hope you like it. Please do reach out if you have any ideas on future topics or speakers. Okay, we are going to have the first of a few interviews on ethics by design, or this idea, this wider concept of going beyond compliance. I really think this will show important differences across cultures, and we're starting in Germany, which I've always felt is a country especially sensitive to social issues and the common welfare. We are doing this with Georgia Voudoulaki, who is a Senior Legal Counsel at Bosch, Certified Compliance Officer and Adjunct Professor at the University of Applied Sciences in Ludwigsburg, as well as the Cooperative State University of Baden-Württemberg. In addition to her legal and academic roles, Georgia publishes articles in leading legal journals covering the topics of responsible AI, for example, as it pertains to human resources, compliance, or digital innovation. Let's go for it. Georgia, thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me, Sergio.
It's a pleasure. So, what do you mean, or what do you believe should be done when we deal with AI in the sense of going beyond compliance? When you talk about going beyond compliance, what do you refer to?
That's a very good starting point, Sergio. So compliance, and I think, or assume you think the same, is non-negotiable. We have laws like the GDPR, like the CCPA, they give us a kind of a baseline. But ethics, also in my opinion, is not a checklist. So going beyond compliance means for me asking the deeper questions about why we are collecting the data, how we use it, and who is actually affected by this. It is about shifting our mindset from can we do this to should we do this, which leads to more responsible, transparent, and ultimately more trustworthy systems.
Yeah, very good. So it reminds me of this notion of ethics by design, sort of taking the bar a bit higher. And so the problem or the concern that I have with that all the time is that there's different cultures and different perceptions of what's good and bad, right? And we've had this debate, I've had this exchange as well with other people, right? Like, what's your moral compass? What culture have you been born in? So certain things that in some cultures represent bias, in others are just the norm, right? And then the other way around. And so how do you build a cultural common ground so that you can define that higher bar?
That's a very good question. So I think this culture in an organization is shaped by three things: by incentives, the behavior within the organization, and with storytelling. So organizations that actually only reward speed and revenue, of course, they will leave ethics, they will push them aside. So if you focus only on revenue, ethics is not your main focus. So what do we need to do here? We need to incentivize responsible choices, whether that's through KPIs, recognition, or an extra budget for a project, for example, which is very ethical compliant. Yeah. So what we also need to normalize in an organization is to actually talk about ethics, talk about this gray area. Ethical discussions, they should not feel like a red flag or like a bottleneck, which, oh, we need to have to think about ethics. No, ethical discussions should be part of the whole innovation conversation. They should be part of the whole deal. Yeah. So, and also, of course, leadership needs to tell the stories when the company slows down to do actually the right thing. Because why? Those stories shape actually what people believe is valued. If the leadership, the management shows that ethics and ethical compliance is a main focus point of the organization, then the employees will follow. They will follow this value, this example. And this is how you build culture.
Very good. Okay, so then I'll put aside the more philosophical debate as to, what is ethical. Like, are we going back to natural law? Like, we are born, everyone is born with the same baseline because we know that we shouldn't kill someone, we shouldn't discriminate someone, we shouldn't. All of these things are sort of, we go back to Kant against positivism, if you want, right? Like, is this right because we have it inside and we all share the same sort of natural law, or Rousseau, right? Or is it right because the law says so, right? As in a more sort of Kelsenian or whatever approach, right? So if you put that aside, what kind of approach is sort of the natural flow of things, and how do you see companies can go against that flow? What do you see is really the imperative for companies to change?
Well, nowadays, companies have, of course, the pressure to reach the revenue goals, their KPIs for the quarter, for the year, or whatever. So what I see is that actually what I said earlier is that compliance, also data protection topics, is put a little bit to the side, because how many times I have heard that data protection can be a bottleneck, can be a showstopper. But this is actually not the case. What we can do as compliance ethicists, like data protection advisors, we can do is to promote and to help the projects to be compliant from the very beginning. And if the management understands this, and this would be then the shift which has to take place, is that the management and the stakeholders, the leadership roles, have to understand that if they live this mindset, and they share this value in their company, in their organization, then the employees and the teams, the project teams, will follow this example. This is what I meant earlier. It's actually this tone from the top. If the management shows the example, everyone in the organization will follow.
That's so good. So is it the chicken or the egg? Is it the management that already has this in them? So they hire someone to run ethics and they start propagating the culture? Or is it because they hire the right persons, the right people, someone that is persuasive enough and bold enough to face management, to approach the board and push for long term and slow thinking and so on, that then they slowly change?
This is a very critical point that you mentioned. To hire a lawyer or a compliance specialist or whatever role you can mention, it's not about to have the person in the organization if you don't cover their backs. If you don't cover their backs and you say, "Oh, we have this role, but please be quiet," or do everything that we promote, that don't stop the project, then the role is empty. But if you give this person the strength, the power, and you empower them, you cover their backs, then they can do their best really to support the projects, support the organization from day one, and to shape this compliance environment, this compliance values, which have to be lived in the organization and, of course, in this to the smallest project you have.
it is true. I mean, good management is always going to be very aware of having to pay salaries every month, having to reach that quarter, speak to investors, do the report, quarterly reports. So that's part of good management. So in my experience, unless it's really utilitarian and really tied to results, it's very hard to persuade people. So I've seen people believe in ethics because they saw the ethical KPIs would impact the brand. So they can measure that in terms of brand perception. So there's already, it's never altruistic, right? It's never up there as a sort of societal value or social kind of mission. It's always there because you can persuade others. Maybe management is persuaded, but they need to have the weapons to tell investors and to tell the market that the reason why they're slowing things down is that the brand will be better off than that of competitors that go faster and break things. So I see that a lot. Do you see, in your experience, maybe in Germany? I know Germany, in my experience, is much more aware of many social issues. So maybe in your experience, this is a bit more mature in Germany.
Well, what I have experienced up to now is that in Germany, and especially in Central Europe, users, customers, employees are very much aware about ethics, about what you, as you mentioned, social rights, the data, how their data are used. And I don't know if it's due to the media or the organizations I live in or the governments which promote this kind of topics. I cannot tell you what the reason is, but this is my observation definitely in the last years. So to come back to your question, I think it's a matter of competitiveness. If an organization focuses on being compliant in every way they can, from legal compliance, ethical compliance, and whatever, product compliance, and so on, they have a competitive, an advancement in competitiveness. So if you compare companies with each other and you see where are the customers going to, which company are they relying more on, they go to the company which is compliant. And you see that also for investors, what you mentioned, they try to cooperate with companies which have a good reputation. So the reputation in Germany and especially in Europe is a very important matter, and we should not overlook that. So of course, compliance may cost on the short term, but on the long term, you definitely have an advantage.
Okay, so then let's move on into the specifics, right? So then we've got this idea. We accept that this is the way to proceed. So we go beyond compliance. And let's now take it into AI, because if we look at just data use and sort of data protection, all of the bases are well covered, even within culture and within even corporate culture. Maybe because we've been dealing with these things for so many years. We've had the principles which are ingrained in the GDPR, so people, accountability. So it seems like culture is already very present, even in the US, across many states and many companies. But with AI, things are a bit different. How do you embed ethics into the daily practice of the company?
Well, that starts at a very early stage with the design stage. So, for example, you have legal reviews, you have technical reviews. Why not have also compliance ethics reviews? Yeah, or impact assessments. It's about cross-functional governance, bringing all the people together. You have the ethicists, you have legal, you have tech, you have product experts. And why not also take customer voices, user voices, employee voices onto the table, to have a cross-functional team to bring all the voices together and to find a common solution. What do we want? Where do we want to go? How do we want to use AI? One very practical method is to set up ethics review board or an AI oversight committee, for example, that is not just meeting when things go wrong, okay, but are a part of the whole life cycle process. or the product life cycle, let's call it like this. And most importantly, it's the leadership which has to model this from the top, as I said at the beginning. So ethics cannot be only an afterthought or a silo. It has to be a part of the product life cycle. So if you embed it from the very beginning and you have everyone from legals to product owners to tech specialists to product specialists, everyone on the same page, then you can start shaping this AI system you want to embed in the organization in a very easy and compliant way.
So let's say then that because we want to go beyond compliance, we're not going to worry about the AI Act, right? Let's say that that's the red line. So we put it aside. So imagine we're not dealing with high risk or forbidden uses. We're not going into all of these things that already need to go through, impact assessments, additional documentation, additional transparency requirements, and so on. But a typical use case, all of these companies like I don't know. Recently, I was using the website of a train company, one of the national train services in Europe, and so of course I was welcomed by a chatbot, as useless as most of them. So, what would you do instead of rushing another chatbot for another company? Whenever people are trying to locate information, what do you think an ethics board or advisory board will be dealing with as things to ponder before rolling these things out?
Well, it's good that you mentioned the chatbots. It's a very, very good example for something that I'm saying almost every day in the organizations I'm working in. In my opinion, let's put it the other way. What I have observed is that some organizations, being it departments or companies and so on, they say, "Oh, there is AI. We can have this and this and this tool. Let's find where we can put it." But it's actually the other way around. You have to make a list of the use cases where AI can make you work more efficiently and more effectively. So instead of having a great AI tool and finding where can we put it inside, where can we embed it in our organization, just to say, "Oh, we use AI," make it the other way around. And this makes it actually then much more easier, because to force an AI tool in the organization where you actually don't need it, but you want to say, "Oh, we have a chatbot, oh, we have AI in HR," or whatever, just to say we are an innovative company because we use AI. No, you're not. No, you're not. Actually, you're then really innovative when you have a good use case where you say, "Here we have a repetitive task which can where we can implement an AI tool and reduce the time, have a cost effectiveness, and so on."
Even public governments and public bodies. Like you go to renew your driver's license or to pay a tax for your car, and every public body has had the brilliant idea to have another chatbot. And I thought, I'm dying to get my AI agent so my agent can talk to these million useless chatbots. And instead of trying to deal with people, they get ready to deal with, again, with agents. That would really save us time. But that's going to be another problem because that will have its own ethical challenges. So, what kind of challenges have you come across when you start dealing with these and debating about whether to launch a new AI-powered service? What kind of thing? What are the greatest hits in terms of things that pop up?
The main topics I'm dealing with at the moment is actually biases. As you said at the beginning, I'm working in the HR environment. So when we want to implement an AI tool, we definitely have to be aware of any biases concerning job applications, employee ratings, or whatever. So if an organization wants to implement AI tools, they need to they have to make sure, and they have to be also very much aware about the biases. So I recently had a discussion on this topic, and we said it depends how you train your models. If you train the models with, excuse me for the expression, with garbage, then you get also garbage as an outcome from the AI tool. So the users of or the training, the persons who are training the AI tools, they need to be aware about biases, not to biased train the AI tool so that they don't have this negative outcome, because then garbage comes out. And this is not what we want. And bias is garbage. So if we want to implement this AI tool, what we need to make sure is that the outcome, I don't say decisions, I say outcome of this AI tools is unbiased and can be actually used. Because then we come to the first point we said we want AI, we want to be cost effective, we want to reduce repetitive tasks, but if with the outcome is not usable, so what were we doing then? So biases is a very important topic, and also the topics of transparency and explainability. Can we explain how the AI is working or not? And this is actually one of the main topics what we have in the implementation of ethical AI, because I would like to point here this out. The opacity erodes trust. So if we cannot, if people don't understand how the decisions are made or the outcome is made, let's put it like this, from the AI tool, and especially these decisions that impact themselves as users, customers, or employees, they lose confidence and they lose their trust in the whole system. So transparency means more than just publishing how this AI model is done. It's more about making the intentions, the limitations, and the impacts clear to a wide range of people, to the stakeholders, to the users, customers, employees, or whoever is affected, actually. So with transparency, you empower the users, the regulators, and all the internal teams, the project teams, for example, to ask better questions and, the most important, to demand better answers.
Have you had to deal with the counter argument to transparency in automated decisions, which is that first, well, there's two of them. One of them, that we always had some secret sources in certain formulas when it came to scoring, not people, right, but even tests, even rewards that are going to be given to people. Imagine there's so many things, how you score tests. If you're open about every single dimension of your test or your scoring system, and again, I'm not talking about scoring people and ranking people, right, in a wild way. But if you expose everything, then it's open to, for people to game the system, because then they know how to play with the system. It's always been the case with exams, with so many other systems where you need to add some opacity so that it works, so people do not play around with, do not game it. And that doesn't have to be AI powered. That was already under a rules-based system, right? Basic deterministic approach to it instead of probabilistic. But another challenge is IP. If you explain every single piece of it, then anybody can copy it. So a lot of people are very worried that they need to keep it as a black box so that IP is protected. I heard lots of counter-arguments to this counter-argument. But have you faced that challenge where people say, well, yes, we want to be transparent, but be careful because you break the system?
I haven't had it in my daily work until now, but it's a very good argument to think about. I would say that, yeah, you can copy the system. You can, or let's take the first part you asked, to copy the system or to be too much prepared for an exam. Then I would say then
exactly.
a contra argument to your contra argument would not a candidate, let's be the job candidate, for example, is he or she not above the others if he takes the time to understand how this model works and is much more prepared? So is this preparation, should not it be rewarded somehow, that he or she prepared himself for a job interview or for a multiple choice test or whatever it is? Should it not be rewarded?
It could be. So let's say that we go for extreme explainability, and we aim for that everything can be explained to the extreme. And we do not worry about IP or people replicating the model, because we think the value would be in the data instead of the model. As it's happening these days that models are being commoditized. We keep hearing this thing. Even though they are the most expensive part in the stack, they're being commoditized, and these things that are built on top are more valuable because data is unique and so on. So then what you're advocating is that on top of these things, we add data that is really well curated so that it doesn't embed any biases. But then we have another problem, because then, maybe this is our last question, but we have another problem, which is, how do you control for biases in that scenario where, for example, a company has not built the LLM, instead, as everyone is sitting on top of, right, on an LLM, on a generic model built by someone else?
Mm-hmm. That's a very good question, Sergio. So, as you said, explainability to the T can have negative impacts, because you said we cannot control the outcome at every time. In my opinion, there has to be regular bias audits, both automated ones, human reviewed ones, to spot and mitigate patterns early. If we say that this AI tool is, so let's call it self-learning, and is improving with the time, how do we make sure that all this information which were put inside of the system at the very beginning are not used wrongly by the tool? Even an AI system is a tool. It's not a human being. It also can make mistakes, also like human beings. So if there is one mistake there and we're not audited on a regular basis, of course, we run the risk to have wrong results as an outcome. So automated and human reviewed audits have to be done on a regular basis. On what kind of regular basis, timely wise, this depends on the system, of course. But if we want to mitigate risks on the patterns of the AI system, we do have to make them regularly, to conduct them regularly, and to mitigate then these risks on an early stage.
So, will you take the transparency commitment all the way to telling people about all the safeguards that you're applying and the ethical layer that you've added? Meaning, for example, how often you're testing for bias, the kind of board that is debating things to slow things down, but you make that part of your transparency effort. So in the end, you've got a summary where everything you're doing is you are saying that you're going to do all of this, so that you're going to be, again, checking for bias, you're going to be checking for explainability, and then you explain that effort in explainability and again and counter bias and so on.
Yes, I would do this definitely, because in my opinion, being transparent in this kind of AI systems is crucial. If the affected person, be it a user, customer, whoever, does not understand what is happening here, do they store my data? What kind of conclusions do they take out of my data, which are fed with in this AI system? They don't have trust in the system. And if we want to have a license to innovation, then this license for innovation is built with trust, explainability, and transparency.
Fantastic, Georgia. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sergio.
Okay, that's all for today. Follow us on Blue Sky and in the Masters of Privacy Altogether profile, you will find the starter pack, which includes the feeds of all of our past guests. There is also a Masters of Privacy LinkedIn channel, which I invite you to follow, where you will find links to our transcripts, cheat sheets, and other surprises every now and then. Our main website is mastersofprivacy.com. Thank you for listening.